Greetings everyone. Today we continue our discussion of Prabhuji's book Bhakti Yoga, the Path of Love. At this time we are reading from the preface of this book, and in our last meeting we discussed the transcendent nature of life and the different way that we react to it, as well as that unchanging presence that lives within us throughout all the changes and experience life through our senses. Today we will continue reading from the preface. Prabhuji writes, I am the disciple of the seer, an enlightened being, somebody who is nobody. In this sentence, Prabhuji presents us with one of the most fundamental principles of the spiritual life, the master-disciple relationship. And Prabhuji begins from saying that I am a disciple. In some point of our evolution, when we begin to feel dissatisfied with this worldly existence, we begin to search for something higher. And then we've been introduced to a new idea through different scriptures in different traditions. We can call this liberation, we can call this enlightenment, we can call this to live in the divine presence, to become closer to God. But this idea offered to us or promised us an infinite bliss, freedom, liberation from our limitations, and so much more. As we follow the guidance of different scriptures, we advise to seek for a guide of a spiritual master. In different traditions it's presented in different ways that can guide us toward that state that we so much desire. And then very similar is the way that when we seek for education in life, we aspire to find the best establishment, the best university, the best college, the best professors that can bring us to our desired goal. We begin to search for spiritual master, and then we often ask if this spiritual master is bona fide, if that spiritual master is enlightened. But the idea behind that, we want to make sure that that particular person can give us what we want. So our sole focus is on a right qualifications of a spiritual master. We want to find the best spiritual master, the most elevated spiritual master, the most enlightened one. And we completely ignore and completely disregard the aspect of our own disciplehood, our ability to learn. In Sanatana Dharma, there is this saying that when disciple is ready, the Guru appears, which guides us to set aside the search for a Guru and to focus on understanding and developing our qualities or our ability to be a disciple. So what it means to be a disciple? For many of us, it feels very simple. Yes, we feel inspired by this divine wisdom. We feel inspired by this promise of freedom and bliss. We desire it. So we feel that we are ready. And we often do not realize that this very notion that we know what we're searching for and we have an idea about the spiritual path and about the way how we should proceed, it can become one of the biggest obstacles in order for us to advance. There are many different examples in the scriptures. Last meeting we discussed Bhagavad Gita, so in the same second chapter in Bhagavad Gita, in this dialogue between Lord Shri Krishna, the embodiment of divinity, and his friend, at that time still not disciple, Arjuna, just to remind us, this dialogue takes place in the midst of two armies in a terrible war, when Arjuna, facing in battle his beloved relatives, his friends, his teachers, people that he adored, and he presented with this impossible task to fight with them. He falls into despair, and some portion of a beginning of the second chapter and the first chapter, he tried to justify and present in front of Krishna many different reasons why he should not fight. He is in despair. And the very first thing that Krishna, smiling, tells to him that you are speaking learned words. We read the scripture, we know exactly what we want. We know how things should be, we know who his bona fide spiritual master is. We have a very clear idea, we just need to find one that he will guide us the way we know, the way we understand, toward our desired goal. And Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, yes, you're speaking learned words, all you say is right. But you're mourning about something that's not worthy of your grief. And Arjuna continue to justify and explain and until in some point Arjuna say, well, now I am confused about my duty. I don't know, basically. And lost all composure because of my miserly weakness. I'm weak, I'm not strong, I have no idea. Yes, I'm inspired by that goal. Yes, I want to be blissful, I want to be free, I want to be beyond all these limitations. But I'm confused and I'm weak. And in this position, I am asking you, Krishna, please tell me for certain what is best for me. And then, only then, Arjuna say, now, only now, when I realize that I have no idea what is best for me, when I realize that I'm confused about my duty, about my direction in life, only then Arjuna say, now I am your disciple, and a soul surrendered unto you, which is very important, please instruct me. So, from this verse, we understand that our disciplehood begins when we realize, or when we can admit our confusion, when we no longer know what is best for us. And when we begin to accept that we will have to trust, that we will have to surrender, we will have to voluntarily put aside everything we know, everything we understood, all our ideas about liberation, about enlightenment, about everything we know, and embrace a guidance of a spiritual master. And it's not only that, this is not one-time event. And we can see, Bhagavad Gita is a very good example, we can see throughout the Gita that we can see it in the 3rd chapter, it's a good example, after Lord Krishna explained to Arjuna about the nature of the soul and about the mystery of the existence, about the wisdom. Then again, in the 3rd chapter, it begins from Arjuna asking, okay, so you explained to me all this, but you guide me to engage in this warfare. So I'm confused again. So why it's so important? Because this process of surrender, it is not an instant event. And when we accept our confusion, when we accept that we're no longer certain what is best for us, in some way we accept our blindness. We begin to understand and accept that we can't really trust our senses, that our way to see life lacking clarity. And the spiritual master would be someone that we would consider a seer, someone who sees reality, someone who sees clear. And this is the reason that he can guide us. But we cannot forget that along this process, until the realization of our real nature, we still blind. And we still live our lives full of beliefs. So along the path, this process of surrender will be tested many times. And it can take us a lifetime or many lifetimes to perfect our disciplehood, to reach this point that we're able to really trust and follow the guidance of a spiritual master. And in a difference to the scripture, we mentioned before, so why do we need spiritual master at all? And the reason is that the scripture speaks in general terms. And a seer, an enlightened being, as Prabhuji writes here, is able to guide every single one of us, seeing our limitations, seeing our challenges, seeing our nature in a very particular way. In Katha Upanishad, it said that the spiritual path is the edge of the very sharp blade. And it's very difficult to follow. So we can accept and follow with general guidelines of different scriptures. But in order to really advance in a spiritual life, really advance in a process of our involution, we need the guidance of someone who sees. And at the same time, we need to constantly be aware, which is very difficult, of our own blindness. And here we come to the second part of this sentence. When Prabhuji say, I am a disciple of a seer, an enlightened being, somebody who is nobody. Spiritual master is the divine grace, is the consciousness manifested in front of us in a human form, so we could relate, and in this way it can guide us in the process of our involution. So as we advance in this path of surrender to existence, we able to perceive a spiritual master with more and more clarity. And when we perfect our disciplehood, we can perceive a spiritual master as what he truly is. And this is when Prabhuji writes, the enlightened being, the seer, somebody who is nobody. We're able to perceive a spiritual master as ourselves. And when we reach that point, the disciple become a master. I hope that this talk brought a bit more clarity to this very important subject and will inspire us to nurture our disciplehood. Jai Prabhuji.